Hey guys, Zomfox here, and today it is time to do a video that you all have been waiting for, and that is my 2024 United Football League season predictions. You've asked for this multiple times in previous videos. I told you I'd wait till we were closer to the season starting, and with there just being about 3 weeks away and us finally seeing some sneak peeks at new uniforms, I feel like now is the time to do this. Yes, this could change a bit if we see like a massive free agent signing or a massive injury, but at this point I feel like we pretty much know a lot of what's going to be on the teams. And even though I don't want to do any sort of extra position rankings because of the potential cuts and all that, doing an overall prediction, I think we can do at this point. And so since you guys have been asking for, I decided to do this a bit early. So without further ado, let's get started by looking at the USFL conference and what records I think the teams are going to get. Now, I think that last place will be the Michigan Panthers. I know I feel like I'm one of the very few Michigan Panthers fans who doesn't have a lot of hope for this upcoming season. But the fact is, I look at this team and I say, your two biggest moves were Corey Coleman and Wes Hills. And Corey Coleman retired, and then you got Lance Lenoir. That's a great receiver. He's an upgrade over the number one you had last year in Joe Walker, but he is a downgrade over what you were expecting to have in Corey Coleman. Instead of having a top 3 receiver, you have a top 7, maybe? You know what I mean? Like, it's a big downgrade from top 3 to you might not even have a top 10 guy. Because he hasn't been in the league for a year, and when he wasn't technically an all-USL player, even though he should have been. But it's a big downgrade from what you expected. So that was one of your big additions. Now, yes, Wes Hills, I've had my issues, but overall he is a really solid and great running back. But when you look at this team and you compare it to a lot of other teams, it's just, they feel kind of weak in a lot of areas, right? I mean, they have a solid receiving core, but when you're talking about like their D-line, it's not as good as like the Roughnecks or the Defenders. They have great safeties, but once you get past their safeties and their linebacking core, is there really any part of the team that's like insane? I mean, again, you have a pretty solid duo in Wes Hills and Matt Colburn. I think that is probably the best duo in the whole league. Well, maybe now it's Trey Williams, Darius Victor again. But I just feel like this team is just kind of weak in a lot of areas that's going to end up screwing them over, and I think they end up finishing 3-7. I think this team does split the series with the Roughnecks. I think they win one game there, and then they get one cheeky win against either the Showboats or the Stallions. Then the XFL side, I think they probably do beat the Brahmas, but then they probably lose to the other 3 teams. I honestly wouldn't be shocked if they pull off a week 1 upset over the Battlehawks, but then end up, losing to the Brahmas. I think that the Panthers realistically could be 2-8 to 4-6. I think there is a world where they sneak into the playoffs again with a 4-6 record. I do think that's possible. And so, because I think that they realistically could go 2-8 or 4-6, I think 3-7 is a good middle ground point. I think this team has potential to do good, but when you have a massive question at quarterback on whether or not E.J. Perry is going to play like he did in the playoff game, or is he going to play like he did in Week 10? Those are 2 very different E.J. Perrys. So, if you get the playoff E.J. Perry, they probably win 5-6 games. If you get the Week 10 E.J. Perry, you're going to end up having to play Danny Etling, who's another wild card. So 3-7 is what I think, though I would not be shocked if this team makes a 4-6 record and sneaks back into the playoffs. I just think that while they did upgrade, I feel like other teams either upgraded more or already were just so much better that they didn't need to upgrade a lot more to be better than the Panthers. Now the next team to look at is going to be the Houston Roughnecks. I'll be honest, the Roughnecks are really weird for me. In my opinion, I think if they make the playoffs, no matter who's in it, I'm going to ride them. Their team is built for the postseason, above all others. They make every other team look weak in terms of the playoffs. You know why? Because playoffs, you need 2 things. You need a defense and you need a running game. You don't need a top-tier quarterback. It's great to have one. We've seen a lot in history that you need one. But a lot of times, you just need a quarterback that's good enough. Trent Dilfer, good enough. Rob Johnson, or not even Rob Johnson, Brad Johnson, good enough. Nick Foles, good enough. Had a couple great games, but at the end of the day, a good enough quarterback. This team can do it. Mark Thompson is the best running back in the league. I know people try to say Abram Smith. I'm sorry, I don't see it. I think he's the second best running back in the league. Mark Thompson did what he did in only 8 games. So you have the best running back in the league, and you have the best D-line in the league. And we've seen in recent years that D-line is a very big thing to have. When you have the best D-line by a country mile, and you still have a really solid rest of your core, you have a decent and good linebacking core and a good defensive back core, you don't really need to have great quarterback play for the playoffs. The issue is getting to the playoffs, and that's where I think they end up getting screwed. I said this team was much like the Steelers, and I do agree with that. I think that they're able to sneak a win against a top-tier team in the XFL conference, because of their D-line. Their D-line could single-handedly carry this team to a win a couple times. So I think that they probably do beat the Brahmas. And honestly, I wouldn't even say that. I think they just go 2-2. I could realistically see them beating both the Defenders and Battlehawks, but then lose to the Brahmas and Renegades. And on the USL side of thing, until proven otherwise, you are forced to give them one win against the Stallions. Until the Stallions can prove that they can actually beat the Gamblers/Roughnecks twice in a year, you have to assume the Roughnecks get a win there. And then, of course, they're probably going to beat the Panthers. But are they going to sweep the Showboats? I don't know. It was tough for me to put them at 3-3, but it was, do I put them at 3-3 and then have another team go 3-3, which I didn't think they would, kind of deal. I feel like this team could go 5-5. I think this team could sneak into the playoffs, and if they make it to the playoffs, you'd be hard-pressed to see me go with any other team to win the championship other than the Roughnecks. That's my personal opinion. This is a team built for the playoffs, but they're not built for the regular season. Very weird, but that's basically what this one is. It's can they make it to the dance, because if they do, they're probably going to win it all. Now, the next team to look at is the Memphis Showboats. I have them making the playoffs as the 2 seed in the USFL Conference at 6-4. I think they go even against the XFL Conference as well. I think they probably beat the Brahmas and then go 1-2 against the other 3 teams. The thing with them is I would not be shocked if the first 3 weeks of the season they start off like 1-2 or even 0-3, but then go 6-1 or 5-2 the rest of the way. This team needs to be gelled. They have a lot of big pieces that need to come together. Yes, John DiFilippo and Sage Trott and Jonathan Adams already have chemistry together, but the rest of the Showboats offense, Darius Victor and Trey Williams, Case Cookis, if they can gel quickly, this team realistically could win 7 or 8 games. But as I said before, I think this is a team that probably goes 6-4, makes it to the playoffs, looking like one of the best teams in the league. I think they go 4-2 in the USFL Conference. I think they probably end up sweeping the Panthers or Roughnecks for 2 wins, and they probably go 1-1 against the other 2. I think they probably do sneak a win against the Stallions, and they win 1 game against either the Roughnecks or the Panthers. So I think they do dominate against the USFL Conference, and that's what ends up having them make the playoffs. Now, coming in as the lead dog of the USFL Conference, it's the Stallions at 7-3. I think they only get 7 wins. I know, only. But the fact is that it's hard to say that they're going to go like 8-2 or 9-1, even though they are the best team in the league. It's just hard to say they're going to win that many games. Again, I think they lose a game to the Roughnecks, and they probably lose a game to the Showboats. So that's 2 losses right there, and then I'd assume that they lose probably 1 game in the XFL Conference. I think the Brahmas and Renegades, I think, are probably guaranteed W's, or as close to guaranteed W's as you can in an on-paper schedule. But it's the Battlehawks and the Defenders I'm a bit skeptical of. The fact is with the Battlehawks is that even though their whole team isn't loaded, they're loaded at areas that can dominate you. You have a great receiving core and a great quarterback. You can torch a team. You have a couple great defenders that can make big plays. And then the Defenders are more of a well-balanced team that actually can rival the Stallions on talent. So I think they probably drop one of those games to finish 7-3. They make the playoffs as the number 1 seed in the USFL side. Now, on the XFL side of things, we're going to start off with the San Antonio Brahmas coming in at last. I know a lot of you Brahmas fans are, you've heard me rag on them a lot, but I've never been, you can go back to my dispersal draft videos. Ever since the first batch of, dispersal draft stuff, I've always said that they've looked pretty weak. They already were the weakest team on paper, in my opinion, even weaker than the Panthers heading into the offseason, UFL offseason. Then they had, I think, probably the weakest dispersal draft. Their super draft was decent, but I think that overall they had one of the weaker off seasons in the league. They had basically a couple big name additions and then a bunch of guys who never really played spring football. I think 3-7 is what they finished. I think they basically mirror the Panthers. They win 2 games within their conference. It's just hard to sweep a division opponent, or conference opponent in this case. So I think they probably end up sneaking a win against 2 different teams. I wouldn't be shocked if they sneak one against the Battlehawks and then they sneak one against the Renegades. Then they probably beat 1 team in the USFL side. Either the Roughnecks or the Panthers. That'd be my guess. So 3-7, I think they're also like the Panthers in the sense that I would not be shocked at 2-8 or 4-6. I think this is a team that 4 wins, just like the Panthers, is the ceiling, but we'll see. Now the next team is the St. Louis Battlehawks, who I have missing the playoffs at 5-5. The Battlehawks, I feel like, are going to be a 500 team. Yeah, I know this is going to, maybe be a hot take to some people, but I think that a lot of people are kind of overrating their offense in a sense. Do they have an excellent quarterback? Yes. Do they have 2 excellent receivers? Yes. Do they have a really good O-line? Yes. The running back group? unproven or guys that haven't shown a lot. Wayne Gallman should, in theory, be really good, but he hasn't played spring football, and we've seen big names fail, a la Brett Hundley literally last year at quarterback. So saying that he is guaranteed to be a Trent Richardson like in the AAF where he's really good, no, you can't do that. So until then, they have a massive question at running back. And while the Renegades got their big tight end back, the Battlehawks still really don't have a awesome tight end. So they have a couple weak spots on offense that can be exploited, and their defense as a whole is just kind of okay. It's not as good as the Roughnecks, it's not as good as the Stallions, it's not as good as the Defenders. So it's just kind of middle of the row. Their head coach is not Wade Phillips, who can make a defense a lot better than you'd expect it to be. So I think that 5-5 is probably what happens. They probably beat the two lesser teams in the UFL conference. Though, honestly, I take that back. I think they probably beat the Showboats, but probably lose to the Roughnecks. The Roughnecks, in a matchup sense, just seem to be better for the Battlehawks. When you have that good a D-line, I would not be shocked if the Roughnecks are able to just pound A.J. McCarron and beat this Battlehawks' great O-line, and that ends up getting them a sneaky win. But then they also would beat the Showboats. I would not be shocked at that. So I think that 5-5 is what they get. I think they probably choke a game against the Brahmas, and they probably lose one or maybe even two games to the Renegades, and maybe the Defenders get one. Could this team go 6-4? Yes. Could they go 4-6? I don't know. I feel like 5-5 is a pretty safe bet for this team. I think that 5-5 is what they go. And finishing at 5-5, but making the playoffs, will be the Renegades. Why do I have them making the playoffs over the Battlehawks? I think that it's going to be the same story we saw last year. I think that coaching is going to be the big difference. In those late season matchups, I feel like Bob Stoops is going to have his boys ready. Anthony Becht is not going to have the Battlehawks as ready as they need to be. And in a late game, they kind of choke, and the Renegades end up sneaking into the playoffs again. But this time, not as a losing team. I think it's the same thing. They go 2-2 in the USFL, 3-3 in the XFL. I think it's the same thing. Same story. I look at them and I say, could this team run it back? The Sal Cannella addition was huge. That was their biggest downgrade in position, was tight end. Getting him back is huge. Now, despite a lot of people trying to act as if Luis Perez is a bad quarterback, because I've actually seen a lot of people say he's not even good, like not even mediocre, which, I'm sorry, did you watch what he did in the postseason this last year? Yeah, the only reason we don't talk about him that much is because Alex Mgu came and made Luis Perez's playoff run just look kind of mediocre when Perez was unbelievable. So, the Renegades finished 5-5. This is a team that I do think loses to the Stallions in week 1. But again, I think they probably do beat the two lesser teams in the USFL conference. In fact, I wouldn't be shocked if they finished 3-1 in the USFL conference, beating the Showboats. But the XFL side of things, I think they probably beat the Battlehawks enough to do it. I think that Stoops probably understands and can, tell his guys that, hey, what really matters is beating the Battlehawks twice. If they sweep the Battlehawks, I feel like that's all but a guaranteed playoff berth. So I think they probably end up sweeping the Battlehawks, and they might even get swept by the Defenders, but that really won't matter. And they make the playoffs at 5-5. Now, the number one team in the XFL side is going to be another 7-3 team in the Defenders. The Defenders probably win 4 games within their conference. They probably sweep the Brahmas and then maybe go 1-1 against the Renegades and the Battlehawks. And then the USFL side of things, they probably beat every team except maybe the Stallions or Showboats. It'll probably be one of those they win, one of those they lose. But again, the wild card in all this, in all honesty, is the Roughnecks. The Roughnecks are a team that, in theory, really shouldn't be, decent. But because of where they're good at, they legit could just sneak win against anyone. So, note, all these teams realistically could hand them an extra loss, in all honesty, because the Roughnecks could just, have a day where, Keontae Shad says, I'm going to get 3 sacks today. Or Chris Odom says, I want to show why I was the best defensive player in the league in 2022. Or Adam Rodriguez pulls a 3-sack day. I wouldn't be shocked if the Roughnecks end up beating, the Defenders in this case, making them drop to 6-4. I wouldn't. They're the wild card in all this, as I've said. But I think the Defenders probably go 7-3. They're the number 1 seed in the XFL conference. So that means that for the conference championships, it is going to be the Memphis Showboats playing at Birmingham and the Arlington Renegades playing at DC. Now, these matchups, we're talking about the end-of-the-year matchups. We're talking about a Defenders team that is ready to get revenge on the Renegades. We're talking about a Showboats team that is fully loaded. And because of that, I have the Showboats and Defenders making it to the championship game. I said it before. You'll be shocked. I said I didn't have the Stallions winning the championship. I don't. I don't even have them making it. I think the Showboats end up doing it. Here's the thing. The only way I see the Stallions realistically making it to the championship game is if they match up against the Panthers somehow. I feel like if they play the Panthers, they easily win. But aside from that, I would rather pick the Roughnecks because they're built for the playoffs, and I'd rather pick the Showboats because I feel like at that point, if they make the playoffs, they're loaded. Now, naturally, injuries could change this, but the Showboats at that point should have a top 3 running back room, a top 3 QB, a top 3 receiving room when you count tight ends, and a defense that is good enough to get the job done. Case Cookus would have won the championship in 2022 if he didn't get hurt. Whereas with Jamar and Alex Magoo, you didn't really feel a massive difference. When you went from Cookus to Costello, you were like, wow, the stars really dropped off. If he doesn't get hurt, they beat the Stallions. He's going to want revenge. They're going to win. Now, the Renegades defenders, it's simply put the better team's going to win this time. Reggie Barlow's not going to let what happened to his boys last year happen again. They're going to get the W. The improved areas on their team are going to get the job done. The defenders, despite being the better team, I feel like upgraded more during the offseason than the Renegades did. And so I have the defenders winning it. And that means the championship game will be the Memphis Showboats playing against the DC Defenders. This is going to be a really good game if this ends up happening. These are two teams that are just really solid. It's one of them that is more of a high-end team versus an overall team. But because of what I've always said, I think the Showboats win the championship. The fact is that you can go back to my days in 2022 USFL coverage and to this past year. Basically, all the big names they added are guys that I've always been very big fans of. Case Cookus I had as the best QB in 2022. I've still had him as a top QB. Darius Victor I've had as a top running back. In fact, I made a case that he should have been all USFL over Wes Hills last year, which was a hot take, but I believed it. And then I've been high on Sage Schrott back when the supplemental draft happened in 2022. And even though it took a year, that video that got only a few views proved to be true. Sage Schrott ended up being a massive sleeper and was awesome this past season. John DeFilippo, I had him pretty highly pegged on my coach's ranking before the 23 season even started. So a lot of the guys they added are guys that I've always been high on, and I feel like picking them to lose this game is just wrong. Because at the end of the day, do I think Abram Smith is better than Darius Victor? Yes. But do I think that Te'amu is better than Cookus? No. Do I think that the defenders' tight ends are better than Sage Schrott? No. Do I think the defenders are better as a team than the Showboats? Probably. But I think that in this championship case, you have a great running back group. You have enough key defenders and guys like John Atkins on the Showboats to get the job done. I think the Showboats win the championship. That's my season prediction for the 2024 season. So that'll do it for my 2024 United Football League season predictions. Again, I know some of these might be considered hot takes, but again, we're predicting what these teams are going to look like, and we really don't know anything about them. I mean, hell, we're just finding out a couple of the uniforms if you want to be, direct about looks. But I think that overall, when you look at this prediction, I think this is pretty solid. I think that when you look at it and you take an objective look at it, it's pretty clear you have one team in each conference that, at least on paper, looks to be the weakest team. Then you have the Roughnecks, which are literally the wild card in the entire league. I would not be shocked if they win 8 games. I'm just being honest. Do I think they will? Hell no. But could they? Yes. Their team is built very much like the 22 Roughnecks, which were the Gamblers, to where their defense can legitimately carry them to wins. But now that you have a coach that, probably, that showed last year he's better at, holding on to a lead than Kevin Sumlin, I think that when you look at it, they realistically could win a lot of games. But at the same time, they could only win 1 game, I wouldn't be shocked. They are the biggest wild card in the league. I do think if they make the playoffs, they win the championship. I just don't think they're going to make the playoffs. Then in the XFL side of things, I think the battle for the second place between the Battlehawks and Renegades is going to be legendary. But I do think the Defenders easily win the division or conference. And then same with the USFL side of things. I think the Stallions easily win it. But the Showboats, as long as everything gels well, they're going to be the best team coming to the last week of the season. So that'll do it. Let me know what you guys think down below in the comments. And as always, if you've been a fan of the channel, make sure to hit the subscribe button and like the video if you haven't already. And if you want, you can join to become a channel member. There's a link in the description, or you can click the join button. Memberships are as low as $1 a month, and you get multiple benefits, including emojis, a channel icon or badge icon, as well as a couple other things, including sneak peeks to upcoming videos. And as always, have a great night.